Drive is what Newton's laws taste like when they act on a conscious and sensitive organism. It's what it's like to be a living being and experience the same force that governs lunar tides or the attraction and repulsion of two magnets. A drive is also a way to learn why a living organism has the conscious yet unavoidable necessity to act and react in the same way an object does. Freud once said the one thing missing in his psychoanalysis doctrine was the existence of a drive theory so he could reach the status of a scientific discipline. Yes, since his contributions, many attempts have been made to fulfill his subtle invitation, and some interesting theories were accomplished after he unveiled his challenge, almost all of them inspired by many of his findings. From those, we could highlight a drive reduction and an optimal arousal theories, one dealing with maintaining homeostasis and the other with reaching a maximum performance. Another one, Maslow's theory of motivation, where an individual climbs to a higher level of need once a lower one has been fulfilled, is yet one more of those pursuits. These and other honorable techniques were designed before the full understanding of the forces that construct them, so it's understandable that none of them have really taken off to reach new heights in handling human issues because of the many factors they involve. But in a time and a world of information like the one we have today, it's impossible not to embrace the idea that making Freud's dream come true is easier now than it ever was before. But then, why aren't we using any of these theories? As a matter of fact, we have been using a bunch of them since always. They have been there for anybody to take full advantage of them. But the real reason why they haven't prospered is that we are on the same stages that we were back in Newton times. Like then, even though we have the means, we don't seem to have the ways. Because just as we thought we knew in those times how an object would react with certain stimulus, we'd like to think we know today how a living being will behave when exposed to another living organism. The only thing that we've been missing until now is a theory that will let us get the most out of a drive that we have had since the beginning. A theory that would remind us that the force that governs one is only one, and the same for everyone. As an example, somehow we fully understand the idea of inertia, despite not being able to put this concept in a sentence. Newton's first motion law says that an object at rest or in motion will maintain its state unless a second force acts upon it. We use this law naturally when we coast in any moving transport. Coasting means to keep a vehicle in motion without using any power whatsoever but the one invested at the beginning of an action. Although we have always known this law, we have seemed to forget that it's not the gas pedal what wastes fuel in a car when moving, but its brakes. In other words, we could take advantage of this already proven law to maximize the use of energy, but not just by saving fuel, but by learning there is a different way to obtain the same results, but with much less effort. In simple terms, despite their apparent obviousness, these laws make all the difference in the universe, but the combinations of all variables involving human beings are so numerous that we could feel inclined to take this enterprise as almost impossible to reach. But isn't this the purpose of a theory? To analyze an information so we can understand it and apply it to any object in any situation, by anyone at any time. The deal in a theory like this would be to come up with a simple set of rules to obtain the less number of results to avoid a different explanation for every investigation taking place, as what has happened now with every attempt we've made so far in psychological research. One may say that with cognitive and behavioral sciences, with which nothing is ever what it seems, anything related to free will would make this theory inapplicable. But certainty may also be obtained with empirical results. We are in different times. All information and the means needed to manage and process it are already here. Just by looking at what has been going on lately on issues related with technological advances and the effect that these have had on individuals in particular and society in general, we can't deny that we're on the verge of a paradigm shift. This sample of living organisms we are now has reached the right temperature to pass it to the next level. One of the greatest things in physics is the clarity of its laws. If we had an equally functional set of rules to describe, explain, and therefore predict a future human action, if it was possible that a science like this could be brought to life with living colors, if there was a way to infuse it with life, if this were true, and a theory like this might happen now, as it happened back in Newton times, it would be the end of the world as we know it, and the beginning of a new one. Would this be a better world? I would say a different world, a world for the better or the worse, as it has always been since the beginning. A different paradigm, a brave new world.